Welcome back to the BSD YouTube channel. As always, your host, Patrick Kerbler, this time joined by a special guest. We're going to have our normal Wednesday preview episode with Tim and Jared tomorrow, but because I wasn't on the Oregon postgame show and I just have to get my takes off, I decided to invite good friend Zach Seyko of the Locked On Nittany Lions podcast. Zach, I've been on your podcast like 5, 6, 7, 8 times. I don't even know how many times at this point. Finally got you on the BSD show. Welcome, and thanks for joining me.
Yeah, appreciate you having me, and glad to return the favor. It's been a long time building up.
Yeah, so what tonight is going to be about is, right, I know Tim on our post-game show kind of talked about, a therapy session. I don't necessarily think this has to be a therapy session because a couple days has passed, right? The sun has risen. We have continued on. It's Tuesday. Like the season's going to continue on, and Penn State's going to continue to play football. But there are just some points that I specifically wanted to talk about with this Oregon game, and I didn't, with our preview show tomorrow. Kind of didn't want that show just to be 90% Oregon. So wanted this to get my thoughts out. So Zach is going to help me do that. Zach, I generally view you as a pretty positive guy. I'm definitely more positive than I was, 2 days ago and certainly last night. As I was rewatching the game. Zach, I don't know if you know this, but I was at a wedding on Saturday night, so watched a lot from my phone. Watched a lot from a not high definition TV in the hotel room. So different experience. What was your? I guess before we get into kind of what our gig will be tonight, what were your takeaways from the game, like immediately following? Were you as angry as the rest of Penn State fans around the world were?
I mean, the immediate reaction, because I did a live show on the football field at 1 a.m. Eastern time, so that's the gift that keeps on giving. No, that's truly a privilege to do that, win or loss. But the immediate reaction is probably the gut punch from Drew Allar throwing the interception, right? That one stings. It's all this talk about how, okay, because I want to pull this one directly from Nick Dawkins, the center, and I'm not going to directly quote him, but had a conversation with him specifically about Drew Allar's tenacity and mental toughness and things like that. Like where is the vision? And he really got in depth with it, talking about the law of attraction. And I'm not going to go on these different tangents, but the point was that, hey, Drew's never really been through true heartbreak and adversity when it comes to the game of football. He hasn't been through that kind of loss to this point in the season. Sure, there's been some struggle type of games against Michigan and Ohio State, but the Notre Dame game, he and I at least agreed, without specifically saying it, that Drew's going to be better because of this. And then it happens again, right? It's exactly that. Penn State it loses literally the exact same way. I mean, other than you were leading and you allowed Notre Dame to come back into it. I think the difference was Penn State found a new way to kind of break fans' hearts with the fact that they were down 17-3. This seemed like it was all Oregon from the start. At least it was for 3.5 quarters. You fight, you claw, you get your way back in, only to truly be heartbroken there by out of all the ways, a Drew Allar interception on the first play of the second overtime. So my criticism immediately went to Drew. It didn't actually go as much to Andy Kotelnicki, but then starting to watch back some of the highlights and stuff, the offensive line honestly should bear the most of the criticism. Drew, yes, could have made some better throws, could have made some better decisions, obviously. But the offensive line, 18 pressures on 25 dropbacks. That's horrible for this a group comprised of third, fourth, and fifth year veterans.
I think that is, and you raise a great point, that in the immediate aftermath of a loss like that, right, everybody just wants someone to blame, whether it's Drew, whether it's, Andy Kotelnicki, whether it's wide receivers like in years past, whether it's, whatever it might be, Brent Pry back in the day, Tom Allen at times, right? When you take your emotions out of it, and that's what I tried to do. And when I did my rewatch last night, I literally start rewatching the game at 8:00, and I didn't finish until like 1:30 a.m. Like I really, really poured over it, and it's not something like I generally do. I'll like rewatch highlights and kind of skim through stuff, but to really pour over a game, I haven't done that in a long time, like I did with this Oregon game. And my takeaway was that it's a team effort. It was a team loss. Like, you can blame Kotelnicki, and you would be right. You can blame Drew Allar, you would be right. You can blame the offensive line, you would be right. So that's kind of why we're here today. Basically, our gig that we're going to do, our little game that we're going to play is Panic Meter. So on a scale of 1 to 5, we're going to go through some different players, some different coaches, some different position groups. And Zach and I are going to rank it on a scale 1 to 5 of how worried are we about them. 1 being not worried at all. 2 being, all right, it's not ideal, but it's probably okay. 3 being, okay, I'm concerned. This is, it's concerning. 4, this is bad. Bad. And 5 is just all out disaster, all caps, exclamation points, screaming everywhere. So, Zach, we're going to save James Franklin for last, just because that conversation can kind of go in a couple different ways, because I think that he in particular is a lot more than just about like that Oregon game in this particular season. So we're going to say James Franklin for last. I didn't know. I was talking to Zach before and didn't know if you were going to start with James or end with James, but I feel in my heart we should end with James. So
save the best for last, right?
Yeah, save the best for last. So let's start with Andy Kotelnicki, because my original take was that I probably Saturday put the most amount of blame on him. I think after doing the rewatch and kind of thinking over, Andy Kotelnicki's tenure, there's been a lot of talk about, is he Mike Yurcich 2.0? I don't believe that to be the case. I'm going to put my panic rating at 2. So 2 being, it was not ideal, but I do think that things will be okay. And I can expound on that, but Zach, I'll kind of give you the floor on Andy Kotelnicki of where are you at as far as how worried you are about him after what was, not his finest performance against Oregon.
A lot of this is just, it's all surprising, right? Every category, for the most part, that we're going to talk about. Why? I'm not going to go through all of them and I guess spoil the show in a way, but it's just the performances here through the first 4 games are all surprising across the board. That, this is a group that returned almost everybody. The only difference is the 3 transfer wide receivers, and you lose Tyler Warren. Is that much big of a flip? Andy Kotelnicki was one of the most sought after offensive coordinator candidates just a year ago. Am I supposed to believe that Kotelnicki just doesn't know how to call plays anymore and that he's a bad offensive coordinator? Again, they were able to. Here's the mistake that they made, and again, it's the fatal one. But I know you can look across, because they did battle their way back, and they ended up scoring 24 points. It was the reactionary. Oregon scored on the first play of double overtime, so we have to as well, or we at least have to get it to 1st and goal, right? You didn't have to. You didn't have to. There's no time limit. Have it just 3.5 yards, 3.5 yards, 3.5 yards. So that was that. It was that reactionary. We need a big play now from the 25, because Oregon just did that. So, okay. All of the, a very roundabout answer to agree with you that I don't think Andy Kotelnicki is the problem. I think it is an execution issue. So I'm putting it mostly on the players and the personnel that we are going to talk about throughout the show. Andy Kotelnicki doesn't become a bad offensive coordinator overnight. And I think his play calls are kind of telling based on where the confidence lies in the passing attack, because Oregon's beating you up front. You can only call so many. You got to do something to just take some pressure off of the line of scrimmage. And that's why you see, okay, why would because I think about it more, more of an abstract way. Why is Andy Kotelnicki calling a QB draw on 3rd and 9? Is that because he's a bad play caller, or is it because the passing attack is not doing its job, is not converting on specific plays? So you just got to try something different. And it looks stupid in the moment, but there's a reason for it. So I feel like Andy Kotelnicki's been doing this job for too long and has had too much success to sit here and say, oh, he's a bad OC and he needs to be fired ASAP. I don't get. I put the panic meter at a 2 or a 3 because there is a growing group of people that think this guy should be fired.
Yeah, and again, to go back to the Yurcich comparison, like how Penn State looked against Ohio State and Michigan 2023 on offense versus how Kotelnicki's two biggest struggles were last year against Ohio State and then this year against Oregon. Like
the number one defense and a top 5 defense.
Yeah, but right, at least they were moving the ball. Like those Yurchic's games where it was dire. And hey, it was pretty dire for 3 quarters, but they eventually did find a way. But right, this idea, like Andy Kotelnicki, right, last year in the Big Ten championship game against a very talented Oregon defense, put up 30 plus points. Even against Notre Dame, like, okay, the offense, it wasn't A plus, but all in all, the offense played pretty well against a very, very good Notre Dame defense. So this idea that Kotelnicki can't, scheme up, can't game plan for really good defenses, I just don't fully believe. Criticisms, and right, why is he a 2? It's not ideal, but probably okay, and not a 1, not worried at all, is that I do buy into the theory of I'm just not exactly sure if Drew Allar is the perfect quarterback fit, right? Not to make this like a Bo Real discussion, but what Andy Kotelnicki wants to do is he wants to run the ball on first down, run the ball on second down, and then pass on third down. That is like ideally if it gets to a first down, second down, third down situation, that's how he wants to set things up. He wants the run to then set up the pass. I just don't know if against like the best teams, the Oregons, the Ohio States, the Notre Dames, right? If that is winning football in 2025, and specifically if it's winning football with a quarterback like Drew Allar. I think Drew, and we'll talk about Drew here in a second. I think Drew is more mobile than people give him credit for, and I was talking about it on Twitter today. He's a big boy, and when he gets moving forward, he's a good runner. Like, he is a good runner. Is he going to pick up 15, 20, 25 yards and run away from guys? No, but I think he can be used in
He did against Oregon.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, I think he can be used in a Haynes King type of way. Not to say that I want him to get 30 carries a game like Haynes King, but right, 5-6 times QB power. I mean, you just mentioned like the QB draw on, I think that was the last drive of the fourth quarter on 3rd and 8 or 3rd and 9 when he picked up 20 yards. He's a tough guy to bring down. Anyway, going off on Drew. What I want to see moving forward from Andy Kotelnicki, and the reason why this is a 2, why I still have confidence in him, because I do think that he is smart. I just want to see more of a commitment to throwing the ball a little bit more on first down and putting Drew in better situations. And I understand, right? Drew Allar's 5-star kid, 30-year starting quarterback. You would hope that he's at the point where they don't need to like put him in good situations, that he's additive. He's making everyone better. Right now, whether it's mental, whether it's physical, that's just not happening with Drew. So something needs to change. And I just think empowering him to, just throw a little bit more is something that could help the offense. It's really tough to, be a game manager at quarterback and say, we're focused on running the ball. For the most part, you're just going to manage the game. But then when we're down 17-3 in the fourth quarter, or when it's tied against Notre Dame, like now you need to go and make plays. Like Michigan did that with JJ McCarthy. That's really, really, really hard to replicate. So that's my only thing with Andy is, can he thread that needle moving forward? Because hey, if they want to run for 200 plus yards against UCLA, they probably will be able to. If they want to run for 200 plus yards against Northwestern, they probably will be able to. I just think that you need to work on what you're going to have to do against Oregon or against Ohio State, because Oregon just gave Ohio State, not that Ohio State needs a blueprint. I think Ohio State has made the blueprint themselves, but they're going to force Penn State. They're going to take away the running game. They're going to force Penn State to pass. Early in downs, that's when it's going to have to happen. So we'll see if Andy Kotelnicki can do that or cannot do that. So both in agreement that not too concerned with Andy. Penn State's offense, I think, as a whole will be fine. Let's talk about Drew. Zach, I'll get us started off here and just say that, I'm a Drew Allar guy, but have to be as, honest as possible. I had this at a 3, meaning I'm officially concerned. I'll give you the floor, though. Thoughts on Drew Allar?
I think a lot of it is the disappointment. It's either a 3 or a 4 for I think that's where it's turning to. If you want the optimistic outlook and say, hey, the offensive line didn't hold up in protection, he was able to will them back to victory. So there's positives to work off of, hey, Oregon's still, you can make the argument Oregon's the number 1 team in the country. It's either Oregon or Ohio State. That's 1 and 2. So that there is still optimism for Allar, that it's a really elite team. He's still a quarterback that can win you most games, but does he take you to the promised land of getting past to the semifinal and to a national title game, and can just win these close games? Because against USC, it's doable. Against Minnesota, it's doable. But a better Michigan team, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and now Oregon, those are the four that have stood in front of Penn State being that tier 1 team. That's the honest part of it. So it's a 3 if you say, well, Drew's still at least very good.
Yeah.
It's a 4 if your expectations are higher and you want a national title out of this team, then it's a 4. Okay. Because I don't think Drew should be benched at all. I am shocked that it's kind of a fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, or fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me kind of thing, because the exact same thing happened again. Okay. They just didn't make enough. He threw an interception on the first play of double overtime, right? If that was a first year starting quarterback, I'd understand. But the whole idea is that, hey, Drew's a film junkie. He watches tons of tape. He knows what to look for. He killed that play. I don't know what the original play call was, but he made the change at the line of scrimmage and then throws the game-losing interception. Those plays should not happen. And the whole thing about Drew is that, well, at least he's really good at decision-making. At least he's good at protecting the football. He didn't there.
Yeah. And we've been through this before. This was the Notre Dame game, right? And not to cut you off, Zach, but right, like even the talk about, this is, college football, like new age college football, like you're not going to go in, more likely than not, you're not going to go undefeated. We saw Ohio State last year. They lose 2 games. Penn State's going to, you lose a game, you have a setback, you grow from it. We just did this last year against Notre Dame. This was the whole reason of these guys coming back was, okay, now you have felt it, right? You got to the semifinal. You got so close. You were, so many plays away against Notre Dame. You had the lead, you had the ball, whatever it might be, and you falter. You throw that interception, but yet here we are, 8 months later, just having the same discussion. And that's where the frustration comes in. So what do you expect to see from Drew the rest of the year? Like you said, 3 or 4, like, do we think that we see, trying to think back to like some really good, like I remember like Maryland 2023 where Drew looked really, really good. Not to make it like this open-ended, but what do you expect from Drew? Like, do we see like him completely falter? Do we see him, these next couple of weeks look better? Like what do you expect to see?
More of the same. I really don't know what else after it. I just don't think there's any more wondering left with him. This was the end of the road, kind of. Is there more to Drew Allar? Is there more to him? Can he be the quarterback QB1 of the 2026 NFL draft, right? That was always, can he take that? And this was the proof that it's just not going to happen. Does he have an NFL future? Yeah. And is there a coach that can probably tap more into his potential and give him better resources and better direction? That kind of thing? Absolutely. But this is the ceiling. He might throw for 300, maybe one more time this season. Who knows? And it's not going to be against Ohio State. It's not going to be against Indiana. It's not going to be against Nebraska. It's going to be in those games where, who knows? It might be against Iowa, right? Honestly, no. And I don't. No, I won't say that yet because I know they're dealing with a quarterback injury and stuff like that. I've just seen more offense from them, right? They put up 38 points against Rutgers, so kind of joking about a potential shootout, track meet type of thing. But Drew's not going to become this, gunslinger type of QB. Okay, this is supposed to be a run first, at least at the maximum a balanced offense.
Yeah.
Penn State's not going to be in a position where they need to throw the football 40, 50 times. So you will see Drew I would like to see him have more games like Nevada where it's your 20 to 25, you throw for 200 to 250, it's 2 touchdowns, maybe you get a third and no turnovers, but that's not even the average. That's not the average. The average is him doing what was against Oregon. You have under 200 yards, it's 15 to 25, and maybe or not there's an interception or a fumble in there.
Yeah.
An untimely one. That's just Drew. That is Drew's average. His peak is when he goes on the road against a team like USC, and he's needed to throw for 350 yards, but there's going to be some turnovers in there. as well. So if you want Drew to throw for 300, 400 yards, it's going to come at the cost of maybe 2 or 3 interceptions from throwing the football so much. So I just think we know what Drew Allar is, and there's no more left. There's no more wondering, because again, I'm always in the belief that, again, more adversity kind of sharpens you. This will help you. I mean, this is the second time you've had to deal with it, so it's either put up or shut up right now.
Do you think that there is, like, how much of this is mental with Drew at this point? Because that's
all of it. He's a 5-star quarterback out of high school. You can just tell he gets really defeated. And I'm not a psychologist. I'm not going to pretend to be one, but you can just tell in these post-game press conferences, or when the moment actually happens, when he makes that mistake, it's just so much. He just looks defeated. He just looks defeated, and people are pointing out appropriately, like, hey, this doesn't look fun. There is such a stark difference. The West Virginia game, Drew's smiling, they're happy, and I mean, you're beating up on a pitiful West Virginia team at that time. But there's really none of that. And I'm just kind of seeing a lack of confidence and a lack of certainty across the board. It stems back to James Franklin. Like, that's a coaching thing. It's weird to me that your 3rd, 4th, and 5th year veteran players are unsure of themselves to an extent on offense. Why is that?
We'll get to James here in a second, but that's why this game was so important for Drew and the rest of these guys, right? Nick Singleton, Denied Desson, like all these guys who have, they came here as top 100 kids, could have went anywhere, but yet they now have this stigma as cannot win the big game as well. And it felt like if you just win one of these, you get the monkey off your back, and it's a 1,000-pound monkey, like, potentially. And all of a sudden, like, what could happen from there? The same way that in 2016, right? 2 games before, right? I think it was 3 games before the Ohio State game. The student section is chanting "Fire Franklin" during the Minnesota game. They come back, they win that Minnesota game.
I was
they blow out Maryland, and then you beat Ohio State, and you just saw a program-changing win. Like, not just yes, you beat the number 2 team, but mentally, like, what that did for that team was so drastic. Like, you just saw flip the switch of, like, we are that team now. Like, we are that team, and that's what makes last Saturday just even more disappointing, was that if they just could have eked it out, as ugly as it was for those 3 quarters, I just think that you would have seen a completely different team, a completely different Drew Allar. And now it's going to take, like we're saying, like, somebody so mentally strong that I just don't know, as we have seen, if he's at that point. Just before we go towards everyone else, just want to say for Drew Allar, kind of just things I want to see. I would like to see him utilize more in the run game, as I mentioned, north-south. Like, at this point, I understood, like, and at a conference, you don't want to get him hurt and stuff like that. He's just flat out not a good enough quarterback. And to be fair, there's not a lot of college quarterbacks that are good enough to just flat out sit in the pocket, but he's not a good enough quarterback that he can't run. Like, he needs to run, and there needs to be design runs and things like that. And shout out Corey Geiger, take some shots deep. And I know we've been saying this for 3 years now. Take some shots deep, one-on-one coverage, whatever it might be, like, just take a shot. If that's where the interception comes, that's where the interception comes. Like, okay, you threw an interception 50 yards down the field. That's okay. That's basically a punt. Maybe you get a pass interference. Maybe, Devontae Ross makes a play on the ball. For Drew, for this offense, they need to start stretching the field vertically. Because as I mentioned before, I think that you want to be in a position where the pass is setting up the run, not the run setting up the pass, because that's what they're going to need to do against the really good teams. What about the wide receivers, Zach? So, right, you kind of mentioned before when we were talking about Drew and Andy, just the different expectations we had for those guys, right? Like, how concerned you are about Drew depends upon what you want out of this Penn State team. If you want 10-2 or 9-3, right? We're probably going to be okay. Penn State's probably going to be okay. If you want more, then maybe more concerned. Wide receivers, I do look at it as, expectation-wise. Nobody thought that this group was going to be. We thought they would be improved, which I do think that they are improved. But no one thought that this was going to be a top 5 unit in the country. So I have the wide receivers at a 2. Not ideal, but probably okay. I think we'll get better gains from Kyron Hudson. I think Devontae Ross, proved to be a pretty good, a good portal transfer. I think Trevor Pena could still as, that was his first big game as well. I think that he can grow from that. So I believe the Oregon game overall pretty happy with the wide receivers. Maybe not happy is the word, but I at least think that they will be okay and there's stuff to grow upon. Where are you at with the wideouts?
And I mean, again, Drew's just not on the same page with them. And I don't know that it is, again, it's the chicken or the egg. Is it the quarterback or is it the wide receivers? Because I see instances where, Drew's missing open receivers and, a football's behind. Is that a timing thing? Is that because the wide receiver's not in the right spot? Is that a spot route? Or is just Drew's inaccurate? And we will never truly know unless Penn State or just somebody says, hey, this is because I think of that play with Nicholas Singleton on the swing route where Drew just misses him. And I interpret that as it's a spot route. Singleton's supposed to be more upfield to catch that ball into space. Or Drew's just that inaccurate, right? We will never know truly for sure. But there are plays where, hey, Trevor Pena breaks open and then the offensive line breaks down. So there's that part of it too. But if Allar stays on his read, Pena's open. And he misses him. The second Pena breaks free, Allar's off to his next read. And it's like, okay, so it's a little bit of everything, unfortunately. It's questionable play calling mixed with questionable quarterback play, mixed with no chemistry, no rapport with the wide receivers just yet. I think that will be there. Practice and game reps will help with that. Sure. And then the offensive line not playing the way they need to. And that's why I think the offensive line was supposed to be, I guess, the most stable of the bunch. Like seven starting caliber offensive linemen, James. That's a luxury you've never had in your tenure at Penn State. And this group looks no different than just kind of, yes, they look better than the 2014, 2015, 2016, but
not that dire.
2022, right? 2023, they're okay. They're not great. You have maybe one select star. It feels like Venga Ioane is the only one that's playing good enough, but still, but honestly, you could even criticize Ioane too. So I know I'm going on a tangent there, but the wide receivers, it's because of the lack of chemistry and rapport with Drew Allar. And that needs to click sooner rather than later. It needs to click before Ohio State. You're fortunate that you get 3 winnable games in a bye week to do that. I'm going to take that optimistic approach, but if it doesn't click by Ohio State, I don't know.
Yeah. Where are you at as far as number 1 out of 5? Because I went with
I'd say it 2. I'd say it 2. Yeah. It's more the offensive line and quarterback play for me than the wide receivers.
All right, let's talk about the offensive line then, because that's right. A lot of our discussion about Kotelnicki and Drew Allar, I do think, all these discussions are all tied together. And that was like the first thing that we said when we got on here was like, you could talk to 10 different Penn State fans and they'll tell you the offensive line, Drew Allar, Kotelnicki, right? When it's all these things are intertwined. I have the offensive line, and this might shock you, Zach, but I have the offensive line out of 1. I'm not worried about them. I'll let you say your piece, and then I'll I guess be the chipper one in this case. But
I mean, the game against Oregon is it's bad tape. Oregon's defensive line, I guess, is just really that good, but it wasn't like it was, hey, Oregon's really blitzing. They didn't have to. I mean, I will give credit where credit's due. I think Oregon's defensive line is just that much better. And I have my questions about, hey, how will they do? I think they'll be fine in pass rush situations, which they were, 18 of 20. They were more than okay. But I really questioned the run defense. Bear Alexander and Amari Washington just lived in Penn State's backfield. And then again, it's the domino effect of all of that. So that limits your play calling. That limits Andy Kotelnicki's too gimmicky, or he's not getting creative enough because your offensive line is not holding up in run blocking or pass protection. You have nothing you can use. What plays can you call? So I put that as a 3 just because, again, they didn't look great the first couple of games. Yeah. But these are fixable issues. It is not a talent issue. It is a chemistry and rapport issue. Anthony Donko moving inside to guard is a bigger deal than I guess most of us would have assumed, even though they tried to frame it as, no, Donko's, you're still moving from right tackle to right guard. You have to build chemistry with Nick Dawkins. Then you have to build chemistry with the guy that is playing your natural position. Then you don't have Tyler Warren anymore. You also have to build rapport on combo blocks with all of the tight ends, Andrew Rapley, Luke Reynolds, and Khalil Dinkins. as sound as they are individually, it's the double teams together that have really hurt Penn State's ground game, aside unless it's Katron Allen, right? So the offensive line, I will give it a 3 just because of the surprise factor. It's like, why is there that much regression? Is there more to this? Or are they just not that good? And they just kind of caught a hot streak at the end of last season.
No, and I get that, right? The offensive line, I think we all thought it would be better. My perspective on this is, well, it's a couple things. One, I just think like generally it just takes any offensive line as you get into a season, like they get better. And that's not just a Penn State thing, that's across the country. Like teams as they go through the season, the offensive line start to gel more. It is very much a position group that is dependent upon reps and double team blocks and getting to the second level and making right, like communication between that whole group. So I think that they can develop synergy as they go along. I just have faith in Phil Trotwine, and we have seen this offensive line do it in the past. I think that there is a big step up, and right, like we can talk about Michigan 2 years ago, like they're out of conference slate. We can talk about Ohio State's out of conference slate last year, right? That didn't necessarily prevent them from winning the national title, and hopefully it doesn't prevent Penn State from winning the national title. But with the benefit of hindsight, probably, would have been nice to sprinkle in like a Boston College or sprinkle in, I don't know, a NC State, just something a little bit more than Nevada, FIU, and Villanova, because there's just such a drastic jump. And I think you saw that with the offensive line. Like, they are not that bad. They're just not that bad. So I think run blocking wise, they will eventually get it together. I do still have questions, pass protection specifically. Some of those outside guys, just don't know if the upside is there with Drew Shelton and Nolan Rucci. But I do think as the season goes along, I think that they are going to be able to run the ball, more and more and more as we get into the season. Just flat out, just because I've seen it before, and I think that we'll eventually get to that point, or Penn State will get to that point. Last offensive thing, Nick Singleton, just because might as well. I put Nick as a 3, just because I like. It's almost like the Allar thing, where it's like he kind of just is what he is at this point. Like, you might get a game where he, breaks off 2 runs, and he's another guy that does also seem very like dependent upon having one good game can kind of break him open. Like he's very much that type of player. To this point, it has not happened. So where are you with Singleton?
It's another weird one, right? These guys come back, they should only get better. It's the same system. Singleton, I mean, I am still going to go off the idea that it helps that it's not just him. You have Katron Allen there to to lean on while he figures things out. So I'm going to go with, it's still surprising, I'm going to go with a 2 just because it's nice to have Katron Allen. He has it figured out. I think Singleton's a good football player, and I think that the coaching from Stan Drayton, they said they're trying to have him see the game differently. Okay, well, he's seeing it differently, all right, so it hasn't quite clicked yet. And I think once you get Singleton into stride, that will help a lot better. I want to see them utilize the backs a little differently. I almost want Singleton to really convert into a full running back wide receiver hybrid. That he's out in the slot, he'll motion in, you can fake the jet sweep to in, you hand it off to Katron, or you throw a quick slant to Trevor Pena. I daydream about Nicholas Singleton on a slant route against a linebacker. Who's going to cover that? Who is covering that in that moment? So we talked about his receiving ability a ton. James Franklin said, hey, he's so much better at catching the football and running routes. Okay, so prove it, kind of thing. I think that Singleton should be basically a hybrid running back wide receiver going forward. And if you want to put your best 11 on the football field on offense, it includes Singleton and Allen together. But that's only if the RB depth is good enough behind them, which I think it is. But if they're dealing with bumps and bruises, it's not. Yeah.
And this idea, and I have said it too in the past, of like, okay, Singleton is the home run threat, which, like, yes, he is. He's more likely to have an 80-yard touchdown than Katron Allen. But on those actual type of plays, like, who's more likely to break tackles, to make guys miss? it's Katron. Like it's not Singleton. Singleton's a one cut cut back at this point. And maybe and that's kind of why it's a 3, like it's concerning. But would I be shocked if Singleton over the next 3 weeks, if he runs for 420 yards and goes over 100 yards in each game and has 3 carries over 40 yards in each of them? Like, no, I won't be shocked. I don't know if it's something that we should like necessarily expect, but even if he's not, the Nick Singleton of last year, breaking off all these huge runs, like you said, I think he still has a ton of value as a pass catcher. I think he's a really good blocker, and that's a big reason why you can play him and Katron together, because they are both good blockers. And then, but yeah, I think like comparatively, Singleton compared to some of these other guys, it's just tough for me to like talking about Andy Kotelnicki, talking about Drew Allar. It's tough for me to care as much, just because I don't know. I mean, like kind of like you said, it's like Penn State does have Katron Allen, and we'll see. I mean, I think we all thought that Katron would have a larger role against Oregon than he did, especially in the first half. So we'll see what happens moving forward. But that is kind of the problem, is that Penn State kind of does need Singleton to break out of this funk if they can get him to. All right, let's talk about what will likely be something positive, Zach. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball, where Penn State, I think all in all, was really, really good before running out of gas a bit against Oregon. Jim Knowles, they paid over $3 million to get him. What is your concern level for Jim Knowles coming out of that Oregon game? Because spoiler alert, but I have it as a 1. I'm not concerned in the slightest.
Yeah. If I can make that a 0, I guess I will play devil's advocate, because it just kind of keeps popping up in my mind, is that Penn State's defense didn't do enough to get off the football field.
Yeah.
They allowed Oregon to sustain longer drives. Dante Moore was not sacked in that game, but I thought that when you look at it, so it's not, again, execution, because Dennis Sutton was there. Amari Campbell was there. And then they missed the tackle. So hindsight's always going to be 2020. You can look at it from 2 different ways. Hey, the offense didn't sustain long enough drives, and therefore the defense got tired out because they were on the football field so much, or the defense didn't do themselves any favors. Knowles didn't dial up any sort of blitzes, right? He was rushing with 4 pretty consistently at what point, but Oregon did the exact same thing, and they were getting home. So that's kind of the difference, is Tosh Lapoy and Jim Knowles were actually calling the same exact defense, and one just executed better. Okay. Yeah. But I have no concerns about Jim Knowles. They are forcing pressure. They are forcing turnovers against non-conference opponents, and Oregon scored 17 points up until the end of regulation, right? So sure. Jim Knowles did everything in his power that he could have. I think he called not a perfect game, but a pretty good one. I'll give them an A-. It was the plays from being so fatigued that they just didn't follow through. But that's not Jim Knowles' fault for Dennis Sutton missing Dante Moore on the rollout. That's not Jim Knowles' fault that Amari Campbell misses him as well. So it's just kind of frustrating at the end of the day. But I will point out is that the defense didn't do any favors themselves by allowing those long drives and no turnovers and no sacks.
Sure. Yeah. And yeah, to be clear, and you said it perfectly, where, it was not a perfect game from Jim Knowles. I specifically think of, what was it, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 of the first overtime, where all of a sudden, like, Jim Knowles decides, let's bring Davion Collins on a delayed blitz. Mm-hmm. What has Oregon done the entire game? You just said, Zach, what has Oregon done the entire game is just move the ball forward, get 4 to 5 yards. And especially in that situation where it's in overtime, they're down by 7. This is absolutely 4-down territory. Jim Knowles has to know Oregon's just probably going to try to get 4 or 5 yards if they can get it. He decides to bring a delayed blitz. Where does the throw go to? Right where Collins was at, right? And that's simple, basic football. Yeah. Blitzer comes, find where he's coming from, throw there, because there's probably going to be a hole there. And that sets up the 4th and 1, which, that's, in a lot of ways, that was the game for Penn State. So, certainly not perfect from Jim Knowles, but this Penn State defense is really, really freaking good. I know that there was, right, like, it'd be great to have Abdul Carter, right? Somebody who is a true game wrecker. Not to say that Dennis Sutton is not that. I still think that that, he's another guy that I think will get better as the season goes along. It's a big jump going against Oregon after, some of the offensive tackles that they've been going against. But I don't think that you can have too many complaints about the defense. Maybe the only one, and you kind of did touch on it, Zach, was the Penn State pass rush. Just the fact that, Knowles didn't blitz a ton. He was pretty happy just to bring 4 defenders, 4 defensive linemen in particular. And they just, whether I know the holding calls are out there, valid or not valid, like they just did not get to Dante Moore enough. And you think just one time, right, on that 3rd and 8 at some point in overtime, if they could have gone to it, that could have changed the game, potentially sealed the victory, and they just were not able to do that. How concerned are we about this pass rush? The fact that Denai Denison was somebody we were saying could be an All-American. I thought played really, really well against Oregon, but just didn't get home. Zane Durant, I know both of us were on Twitter really hyping him up going into the Oregon game, and it was not his finest performance.
Humbled very quickly. Yes.
It was not his finest performance. How concerned are you about the pass rush? Just after, Dante Moore pretty much had a clean pocket most of the night.
I think it's the design of the defense. This is a team that is going to rely on the linebackers and the defensive backs to the defensive line will essentially act as space eaters. They will fill gaps, and it will allow for Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell to make plays, as we saw. Zachy Wheatley and whatever mix of King Mack or Zion Tracy. Those are all really good football players. They're talented football players. I'm talking about the safeties primarily that are around the box. AJ Harris and Davian Collins and Elliott Washington will make select plays here and there, but guys that are really focused around the line of scrimmage or in the box and they'll roll coverages and everything to bring them to the line of scrimmage. I would say I'm more concerned about select players, which do not include Denai Dennis-Sutton, which do not include Xavier Gilliam. So it's he was impressive. It was Zane Durant getting pushed around, and he was mainly double teamed. I mean, he was the focal point of the double teams from that interior of the line of scrimmage. But even when he was on a single team, it's not like he was making all these extracurricular plays when he was one-on-one. So he was manhandled for the most part. Zane Durant is... I didn't know that he was overrated, but if you're a first team preseason All-American, you didn't play like it. You didn't make one play. There wasn't one tackle for loss in that game from him. So I would put it on the defensive tackles, the starters, the Zane Durant and Alonzo Ford duo that I thought was going to be, hey, this is the stable part. And right now it's Xavier Gilliam's picking up some slack, but then after that, Penn State, I mean, I will say this about the defense. They did not play anybody past the starters. Chaz Coleman got a few snaps, Xavier Gilliam got a few snaps, but the depth chart shrinked immensely between the D line, the linebackers, and the safeties and corners. If they get an injury, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So it's funny that you do mention some of the depth pieces, just because I do think that will be so important these next couple games as they go along the season. I had no problems with Penn State being like, you know what, we're just going to roll with the starters the entire game. But I think someone like Zane Durant, he's a smaller guy. He's not someone that okay, yes, smaller guy, probably should be in better shape than Jordan Davis of the Eagles, for example, right? Who needs more breathers, but he's just not going to hold up in the same way. There needs to be at least more of a rotation. So I do think it's going to be important that, defensive tackles like Blanding play a little bit more. Owen Waffley as well. Waffle, I believe, actually is how you pronounce his name. And same with defensive ends. I mean, Denai Denison was out there the entire freaking game. Zariah Fisher was out there the large majority of the game. Jalen Harvey, Chaz Coleman, super, super talented. I am hopeful for what they will be, and that is why I do have the Penn State pass rush as a 2. It's not ideal, but I do think it will be okay. Not ideal in the sense that, okay, maybe Zane Durant just doesn't have that extra gear that we thought he had, right? He had, I think, 15 tackles for loss last year. I thought maybe he could, even be better than that. Maybe he just is a second team, first team, all Big Ten guy, but not the All-American that we thought he was. But
I do think it's kind of the same thing with everybody. Same thing about Drew Allar is that, okay, if he performs at his best, he's a all conference guy. Okay,
Yeah.
Zane Durant, all conference guy. I think the only ones that should be, now I'll say this: Amari Campbell should be on All America watch. Dude's got a ton of tackles and made 15 of them against Oregon specifically. So Tony Rojas should be put. I mean, those two guys could be both first team all conference at linebacker, right? They're not going to do that, but they're certainly playing like it. Zachy Wheatley is playing fringe, kind of in between all conference and maybe all America.
And you raise a good point, Zach, where, right, we think back to the beginning of last season. We knew Abdul Carter was really, really good. We didn't know that he was, number 3 pick in the draft, absolute unanimous first team All-American. Mm-hmm. We knew Tyler Warren was a really good tight end. We did not know he was that. His first 4 years at Penn State, he was not that. He was not what is already a top 7 tight end in the NFL. Yeah. Like, you had those guys step up, right? Think about if 2024 Tyler Warren, you replace him and put 2023 Tyler Warren, and you take, I know it's a little bit different with Abdul, the fact that he switched from linebacker to defensive end, but same thing. And that's just, I don't know how much growth we have seen from Nick Singleton. I think Katron Allen has gotten better. I don't know if he's gotten that much better. How much growth we have seen from Drew Allar? I mean, right? Yeah. That's kind of the big question. So I know we're kind of delving past the pass rush thing, but that is an interesting point of, everyone had Penn State number 1, number 2, number 3, right? Like, they were a trendy pick to win the national championship. And it was because this idea of these guys are coming back. They're already good players. They will improve. And I just don't know if they
logic fail. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it.
All right. Pass rush, I think will be okay. Let's talk about James Franklin. Wrap this up. And thank you, Zach, for your time. I know I originally had said, maybe we'll go about 30 minutes or so. We're 46 minutes into it, and we're just getting to the main event. James Franklin. I don't even know where I want to start with this guy, Zach. So I'm going to let you start.
Thank you.
Where are we with James? I put this down at a 4 in the this is bad. And right, it depends upon what our discussion is. James Franklin is a very good coach. He is. He's a very good program. He's
a very good program leader.
Yeah, no, and as annoying as his 99% of programs will love to be where we're at, and even at Monday's press conference, still saying, all the positive things we've done these last 12 years. Like, that annoys me to no end when he says stuff like that. There is truth to it. Like, he is a good coach. I will not deny that. I will not argue that he's not a good coach. This big game stuff, though, like, what are we doing? What are we doing? Like, that, we talk about Drew Allar, we talk about Andy Kotelnicki, we talk about all these guys, we watch the games, et cetera, et cetera. We've had this discussion 700 times the last 7 years, basically since the start of the 2017 season. Mm-hmm. And there is one constant in that, and that is James Franklin. And this is not, and I know we talked a little bit about that. This is not like I want James Franklin fired type thing. Like, they're not going to fire him. They're not, like, that's not going to happen. But is he preventing Penn State from taking the next step, right? The same way that we're saying, Drew Allar is what he is. Like, if you think he's going to be a quarterback that's going to lead you to a national title, you're probably going to be wrong. Is that the same with James Franklin?
Yeah, it goes back to because everything was predicated on or prefaced with, if not now, then when.
Yep.
Okay. So I want to, because let me start over there, because I'm like, where do I want to take this? Yes, everything was predicated on, okay, if not now, then when? Because, okay, you move on to Ethan Grunkemeyer, or do you go into the transfer portal? Do you go get maybe it's Bo Prabula, right? Do you bring him back? No, he's doing very well at Missouri, and they're committed to him with hefty NIL and stuff. But it's going to be another 3, 4, 5 year cycle where I don't know that Penn State doesn't necessarily immediately position themselves to be a national title contender again going into next season. Okay, if Ethan Grunkemeyer sticks around,
let's even say, because I next season's schedule, by the way, is talk about easy peasy, like. Because
they could go 12-0 and then they fizzle out in the playoffs, right?
Well,
okay, they might be better than the 12-0 schedule, but are they actually that good of a team? And it's just, so
sorry, Zach, not to cut you off, but that kind of
Yeah.
is my question of, right, whenever that next window comes, I think probably 2 years from now, right, if everything stays the same, James, continues to recruit the way that he does, Penn State's NIL to continue to improve. Like, I do think that the window will kind of reopen again in 2 years. Maybe not in like the 2025 sense where it's like, oh, Penn State was ranked number 2 coming into the year, but at least in the, okay, maybe this is like the 2023 season where they're ranked like number 6, number 7 to start the year. Even if that's the case, how much of this program falling short is based on James Franklin, right? Like is he not the reason that they cannot get over the hump?
There's a lot of competing factors. Let's also remember. Okay, so here's this, and it's not an excuse. It is the truth, or you can look at it as an excuse if you want, and it very well may be. Is that Penn State? It's not like they're the number 1 school when it comes to resources. Okay, Ohio State operates on that consistent national championship level because they have the resources to get the best head coach and then get one of the better head coaches, right? And same thing with Oregon, and go get the coordinators. So this is the first time that in the past 2 seasons, James Franklin has it started with Manny Diaz in 2022, but they finally, NIL has finally caught up, and now James Franklin, instead of picking his 3rd or 4th choice on the coordinator list, he now gets the number 1 guy in Jim Knowles. He now gets the number 1 guy in Andy Kotelnicki, and you think that would be the change, okay? But it's still not. I also want to remind people how difficult it is to recruit high school football players to State College. This college football is no longer regional, where you could recruit in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York, Ohio during the Joe Paterno years and be very successful because the sport was very regionalized. Now it's nationalized, where Oregon is recruiting from California to Florida to everywhere. And you got to go up against the likes of Texas coming into the state of Pennsylvania and Ohio State and Oregon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you just had to worry about your region and the schools around you like Syracuse, Pitt, Maryland, and Ohio State and Notre Dame. Now you got to worry about USC. Again, Luke Wafel should have been a 100% guaranteed commit to Penn State. Instead, USC comes all the way over and gets that commitment. Oregon, Brandon Finney. He shut down Penn State's wide receivers. All the way from Oregon, going into Maryland to get that commitment. So you see, it's that kind of thing where State College is not the most flattering place for high school football recruits to be for 4 to 5 years. James Franklin does a lot of heavy lifting to have Penn State in the situation that it is. Again, you could look at that as a scapegoat, as a cop-out, so be it, but it is a reality that it's not the same as recruiting to LSU or Florida or, Columbus, Ohio, right? There's also more. That's why NIL is so important and why James Franklin is really keen on facilities and resources and NIL, because there are so many business opportunities in Columbus that you just need to build up the NIL infrastructure because State College is not a business hub. It's not Philadelphia. It's not Pittsburgh. And those places aren't far away, or they are far away. It's a 15-minute drive for Ohio State to do business, meet for dinner, right? There are how many Fortune 500 companies in Columbus? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a lot more appealing in other places. And I think James Franklin has bridged the gap here in a nationalized landscape of college football.
Where do you think under James Franklin? Because again, I'm not arguing that he hasn't done a great job, right? Whenever he decides to move on, because I mean, that is what I think it will be. It will not be Penn State moving on from him. I think it will be him deciding to move on to another SEC opportunity. Just
Florida, LSU, who knows, right? That's what I always circle those ones. USC, if they ever part with Lincoln Riley.
But whenever he leaves, like my takeaway will be, listen, let's just say it was after the season, Penn State goes 10-2, whatever. Did he accomplish the goal of winning a national championship, which is, the standard at Penn State is to win national titles? No, but he left this place in a way, way, way better spot and was a tremendously successful head coach.
Yeah.
Still, and I know we were doing the 1 to 5, panic meter, but on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you say like the Penn State program is at right now?
it's in a great spot
So I'd say
because
like 8.5 out of 10,
for
right?
what it's worth. I mean, they made the semifinal, given it was an easy path, and they're a national title contending team this season, and at least next season sets up relatively nicely. I know that has to do with the schedule, but they never go through a true rebuild other than immediately after COVID. They were right back in it in 2022,
Yeah.
2023, 2024, and I get it. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's not up to the standard of what Joe Paterno was delivering, fairly routinely over now. He had a much longer tenure at Penn State, right? But if that's what it's being compared to, okay, is James Franklin going to live up to the winning expectations of some of those Joe Paterno teams? And it could happen, but it's not going to be on a consistent year by year basis. I think you're going to get kind of different fluctuations where they kind of come in these 4 or 5 year cycles where you really hit. So 2022 was that class. The Saquon Barkley class that was 2015, 2022, and now we're seeing it with 2027 at least starting to materialize in the right way. So there's that next elite cycle, and instead of it being 7 years, it's now kind of closing to 5. So that's where they are.
I guess my question though is,
I'm numb to it, so I don't have really a concern thing. It's just like you're used to it at this point. There is no concern on my behalf about James Franklin. He is what he is. Penn State is what they are what they are at this point. They are going to be a tier 2 team that might break out at some point.
But can they? What are the realistic chances that they are a tier 1 team with a different head coach? Like the same way, and just before, right? I understand the whole. People always bring up Nebraska, Bo Pelini. We can also bring up Georgia is a very specific case as well, right? Mark Richt. Kind of same thing as James Franklin.
Well, that's the idea is that Georgia moved on and they got better because they got Kirby Smart. I don't think Penn State
I would also
say, go ahead.
Sorry, not to cut you off again, Zach, but the other one that I think is important to look at here, and I do understand like NIL changes everything, right? Like whenever Penn State makes a switch from James to a new head coach, like the NIL backing, like there should be a push there. There needs to be a major push there. So I do understand that. But right, I almost look at Oregon with Mario Cristobal of same thing, right? Won a Rose Bowl, won a couple Pac-12, Pac-10, whatever it was called back then, championships. Could never see. I mean, Mario's another like a big game Mario guy where he just could never win the actual like big games, would always falter at some point. They go out and they get, I think Dan Lanning was the co-DC at Georgia at that point. They go out and they get Dan Lanning, and all of a sudden, like everything changes for that program. And I do understand that coinciding with NIL really becoming a thing, that's probably the rare part. But I mean, clearly Dan Lanning is a fantastic coach. So I guess my question is, and this is, we can save this for the offseason and we'll see where this goes. But
or after the Ohio State game.
Or after the Ohio State game, we'll see. Is there a coach that Penn State can realistically get that could take them to a level that James can't, knowing that James cannot win these big games, or at least to this point has shown he cannot, and there's no reason for us at this point to think that he's going to go into Ohio State, and that's why this game is so important, because we do not want Penn State.
Indiana now is classified as a big game. I don't know that I would put Penn State. They'd be in the same situation where they're a 2 and a 3.5 point favorite.
We'll see on that, Zach. I have a feeling that if Penn State beats Indiana, we will not be, well, not we, but we as like the people that talk about college football on the internet. I have a feeling if Penn State beats Indiana, that it's not going to account for James's big game record.
Oh yeah, right.
If Indiana wins, though, that is
it's another big game. Let me say, here's what I don't think Penn State. This is what I was really wanted to say.
Yeah,
I don't think Penn State will ever become Nebraska 2.0 or anything like that, where they're just kind of. But I do think that Penn State will always still be Penn State, because the first immediate candidate that comes to mind is Matt Rule. What does Matt Rule give you that James Franklin doesn't?
I had Matt Rule, just for the record, Zach. I updated my hot board on Sunday. Excuse me, I'm batting a little bit of a cold. I updated my coaching hot board on Sunday after the game, as one does. I had Matt Rule 13th, so he's pretty far down my list.
Okay.
You know what? I'll do it.
Is Alex Golish number one? Because the idea would be to find the next Dan Lanning.
No, so here we can do this. We're an hour in. We do have 21 people watching, so thank you to all 21 for watching.
That's awesome.
Please subscribe to the YouTube channel if you can. Make sure you're checking out. I'm sure if you're watching this, you have seen Zach's videos. They're all over the internet. He's getting 20,000 people per episode. Locked On Nittany Lions. Make sure you're checking out Zach as well. I'll give you a couple at the top for me. And maybe these aren't realistic, and you can tell me. Kenny Dillingham. I know right now he has such ties to Arizona State. I can't think that Arizona State is the end for him. Kurt Cignetti. I also don't think Indiana is going to be his last job.
That's interesting. I think because of the commitment it would be interesting to, I'm not saying it's impossible, but they've committed to him. Tom Allen walked so Kurt Cignetti could run at Indiana.
Sure. Just the last guy, and again, we don't have to go through all this. I always have loved Jeff Brom, and Jeff Brom is kind of what I'm thinking. Like, is he a better coach than James Franklin? I don't know. Probably not. But do I think that Jeff Brom is a good enough coach to at least once every 4 years get these big wins, have Penn State win a Big Ten, make these playoff runs, right? Like, the problem for Franklin isn't that he can't win. It's that he loses all these big games, right? That's Ed Orgeron won a national championship. Les Miles won a national championship because they were at least once they had those teams, they were able to win the big game. So, okay, Jeff Brom might come here, and I'm not necessarily saying that he does because he's a Louisville guy. He might just want to stay there. Right? If Penn State got Jeff Brom, maybe there's some in 4 seasons. Maybe there's some 9 in 3 seasons, more than we've had under Franklin. But I also do think that if they could get the right team, that he's the type of guy that could beat Ohio State because he did it at Purdue, right? So that's my only thing. That this is such a off-season discussion, not exactly what I wanted to talk about.
And it's interesting, right? It's kind of a first world type of problem.
Absolutely.
A winning program type of problem. Like, Penn State could be better.
Yeah.
They have one loss. And Penn State certainly believes that they can be this year's Ohio State because that's what James Franklin said, that, hey, we can still win out and we might even take another loss and we can still get into the playoff and run the table. And it's like, wow.
I would love nothing more than to look back on this entire discussion after, if they can somehow beat Ohio State and come back and watch us and be like, you dummy, you were so stupid. Why? That's when you quit. That's when you quit. So, hey, I am completely rooting for myself to look like an idiot for this entire discussion. I hope that Drew Allar comes out and balls out. I hope Andy Kotelnicki opens up this offense and we get some air raid and James Franklin all of a sudden is, winning every single big game. That's what I want more than anything else. Zach, we've gone over an hour. I apologize for...
No, don't apologize. I like talking ball, as you can tell. So...
Thank you so much for joining once again. Zach, if you want to plug Locked On Nittany Lions, right?
Yeah, Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow me on X, Twitter for the written version of a lot of those takes that are seen in the episodes. But I talk about Penn State sports daily, and not only football, but wrestling, recruiting, basketball, hockey, you name it.
I was going to say wrestling in particular. Zach is one of the best at, and hockey. Now we have Gavin McKenna, so we all have to be hockey people. So yes, check that out as well. Zach, once again, thank you so much for joining. And thank you to everyone who joined as well, whether you're watching this live or whether you're watching this on replay. We truly do appreciate it. Once again, BSD, we at BSD, myself, Tim, and Jarrett will be back again tomorrow night for our normally scheduled Wednesday preview. We'll be talking UCLA. Maybe we'll talk a little bit Oregon, but again, this was kind of the idea to get on here tonight so I can get my Oregon takes out. So we'll be back tomorrow night around 7 o'clock. So we'll see you then.